Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Chaffee on this Wednesday, and this is going to turn out to be quite the storm for New England. We have a large area of winter storm warnings up for just about all of Vermont, except the extreme northwest, New Hampshire, most of Massachusetts, except the eastern third of it. Winter storm watches extend a little further east there, and then up the coast into Maine. But you see the warnings cover just about all of New Hampshire and most of western Maine. This is all probably going to get extended further northeast over time. And let's just check real quick. I'm going to, nope, wrong direction. Let's see if we've got other things going on over the rest of the country, because we do. And as the map resets itself, we can take a look at, if it ever gets there. There we go. And we do have some winter weather advisories up for parts of the northern Rockies, northwestern Wyoming, and a few isolated pockets of winter storm warnings that are posted there. And by the way, back in the east, we also have some lake effect issues going on over Lake Ontario, so they're probably going to have to deal with that with this low going by. So it's going to be quite a busy time. And, you know, the weather models here, starting with the new NAM model, and you can take a look. I've got this set for the first frame is at 3 a.m. on Thursday, and you start to see that snow break out through Pennsylvania into northwestern New Jersey and southeastern New York. This is by 8 a.m., and by 9 a.m., the leading edge is into western Connecticut. But notice it's already all, pretty much all rain throughout most of New Jersey, probably south of Route 80, or maybe extending down to Route 78 and into Long Island. Snow up in northeastern PA, and then extending up throughout upstate New York. Now, this is going to be quite the powerhouse. And the issue with regards to when we were earlier in the week, the model, remember, was generating a wave down just near Chesapeake Bay or off the Virginia coast. And even though it's a little bit further north, the wave is actually going to form somewhere off the Delaware coast or New Jersey coast. That short distance makes a huge difference in terms of how this all plays out, because for one thing, the wave takes longer to evolve. See, it pops up finally by late Thursday afternoon when it's east of New Jersey and south of Long Island. The warm air gets to penetrate pretty far to the north because of this. The earlier NAM runs, with the low being pinned down further southeast, the warm air was only going to get maybe just inland of the coast, and that would have produced a pretty decent snowfall for the interior areas of southeastern New York, up into northern New Jersey, the Hudson Valley, and then through much of Connecticut. But you can see the snow line on the NAM gets all the way up into southern Massachusetts. Now, what happens is, as that low explodes and intensifies, which it's not going to do materially until it gets to just east of the New England coast. So from right here at Montauk, the pressure is 990 millibars. And then and this is, by the way, at 5 o'clock tomorrow evening. Okay, so by the time we get to 10 o'clock, in the evening, the low is a 978. So it drops 12 millibars in about 4 hours. That's 3 millibars an hour. That's very rapid deepening that's going on. So this thing really explodes. And you can see the darker blues that appear throughout much of Maine and back into eastern New Hampshire. So somebody in here is going to get clobbered with a foot plus of snow, and maybe even some lightning and thunder in the mix. So you can see the yellow radar echo showing up inside the blues. So I think this is going to be quite the storm. And of course, it turns pretty windy behind it as it goes by, and the lake effect machine goes on throughout upstate New York. And actually, the lake effect machine is also going to be turned on in parts of Ohio, into West Virginia and western Pennsylvania with this, because of where the low tracks. The winds come pretty much longwise across Lake Huron and also through Lake Erie. So you're getting a pretty good trajectory here of moisture that's going to play out in Ohio and in through western Pennsylvania and into the mountains of West Virginia. So let's check what the snowfall looks like for these areas. And you can see here, I'll run it right through till the end. Actually, it does produce, for western Pennsylvania down in the mountains of West Virginia, it looks like there's probably some 6-inch plus amounts that go on in there, 2 to 4 inches along the lee side of Lake Erie into Ontario, and then extending into eastern Ohio. And then from the storm itself, you've got 1 foot plus snows in a fairly large area covering much of Vermont, New Hampshire, and western Maine. So this pretty well outlines where that winter storm warning has been posted. And also you can see how much snow is not falling down near the coast, because the rain snow line gets all the way up to Route 84, maybe even a little bit further north than that on the NAM model. Now I want to look longer range because we have a couple of things going on, and one of the things I want to show you is with respect to the indices, 2 things are happening. The North Atlantic Oscillation, which measures the blocking pattern in the Atlantic, is going negative, which means increased blocking. And it goes negative. This is off yesterday's forecast. I don't have the updated forecast for today yet, but I'm going to assume that since I looked at the models and there wasn't too much change, that they're not going to be that far off. But it does go negative beginning tomorrow and taking us right through New Year's till about January 4th or 5th. And then after that, it goes kind of slightly positive and then trends back to neutral and looks like it wants to go negative again after January 10th. The EPO index, the Eastern Pacific Oscillation, which I regard as more important as far as where the cold air, how much cold air there is, and whether it gets into the east or not, also at the same time goes pretty sharply negative through much of next week and stays negative, although it does trend back up toward neutral or slightly negative into the second week of January. And the other thing is that the PNA index continues to remain off the wall negative, which, by the way, will probably favor overrunning precipitation patterns, possibly setting up. So I point that out because it's going to be negative right through. And indeed, when we look at, I'm going to show you the GFS, and we're going to switch. I want to go to the wider view so that you folks can get a feel for the whole country with regards to what's going on. And by the way, I want to make a point here. I don't know if you guys know who Larry Cosgrove is, but Larry Cosgrove is a meteorologist. I've known his work for quite a long time. He really knows his long range stuff far better than I do. And one of the things he pointed out, and I think it's really important, that through all of this process, by the way, snow cover in North America is continuing to expand at a pretty quick pace, and it's actually rather high. And he points out, and I think rather correctly, that the bulk of the cold air that affects the United States comes out of Canada. It doesn't come out of Siberia. So the building of the snow cover in North America kind of creates a refrigerator effect over time. So as the snow cover expands southward, gradually the colder air masses will be expanding southward. And I think that's what really the models are showing on the last couple of runs. Now, here's the first weather system, which the GFS, by the way, wraps up pretty nicely up into Maine, and we get into a shot of cold air that comes in for Friday and into the start of the weekend. Now, one of the things that I think is going to happen is, first off, we have a low that's moving across southern Canada with a bit of a warm front, cold front scenario. So New Year's Eve, there might be some showers of rain or snow showers just away from the coast. Maybe even on the coast it'll be snow showers. But notice that we have a front that goes down from this system and extends down into the Gulf states. So we're talking about these overrunning patterns. And you can see here that we have a low that's starting to form down in southern Texas, and some moisture begins to gather up in the Gulf states. And then you have this high that's going to be headed northeastward. Now, that high is going to build up into New England. Now, this is one of the things I want to watch closely for next week, because with the NAO going negative here at this point and a high going up into New England, there is going to be a tendency for that high to probably want to stick around a little longer than what may be modeled. So 2 things may happen in this instance. Even though there isn't a whole lot of cold air left, there probably will be cold air in the bottom of the atmosphere, which is going to attempt to dam down into the mountains of Pennsylvania and into the Appalachians. And here's that low, that wave that's coming out. So you can see there's a pinned warm front here, what we like to call a hairpin warm front that runs down southward into Georgia and then moves up into the Carolinas. So there's going to be some kind of wave that's going to develop on that warm front, and that's going to pinch some of that cold air in. So the GFS does show an area of ice that develops here. Now, it has it mostly north, but I'm thinking that this high could hold in a little stronger and wedge down so that we could have maybe some icing issues, particularly just inland of the coast. And when you look at what's happening here, that wave develops on that warm front, and that's going to go out this way. So you got a dying primary low that goes into the lakes, and the cold air kind of gets wedged in the middle. It's not going to be cold enough for snow in most areas because you lose it aloft. Meanwhile, look what's going on out west. So we have another storm that's coming in to the west, and we have low pressure in northern Texas. So we're starting to get snow breaking out into the Colorado Rockies, and you get a little bit of snow that breaks out up near Minnesota and Wisconsin. And what happens here is that the model develops a pretty hefty looking low that heads up into eastern Michigan, southeastern Michigan, and it brings some pretty hefty snows to Missouri, to St. Louis, and then eventually to Chicago and on up into Michigan. That's a pretty wrapped up little low there. And then you've got a lot of cold air that comes in. This is going to have quite the cold air behind it. And as I was saying before, with respect to what Larry Cosgrove was saying with the expanding snow cover, this is going to be the result of that, that you're going to have a pretty good dump of cold air coming into the United States later next week. And it spreads throughout all of the eastern part of the United States and gets all the way down into the southeast. So this is going to be a pretty strong shot later next week. Now, what happens after that? Well, here comes another weather system coming into the Rockies if the GFS is right. Now, we're out at day 10, so this is not going to be, how it's really going to look. It's probably going to change quite a bit. But I've been actually quite impressed in how remarkably consistent the GFS is compared to the other models. But here we have another low, and then we have another round of snow for the central Rockies and more cold air that's coming down. This high pulls out to the east eventually. And, well, the GFS at least has another low trying to go up into the Midwest with the cold front to the East Coast. And then another very cold air mass comes in as we move into the January 10th and beyond time frame. So, it looks like the cold air part of the equation is going to get established pretty well for the East. Now, whether the snow part of the equation does is a totally different story. I would just simply suggest that we're going to have a different look here over time. So let's go to the upper air and take a look. And also, by the way, I hope that over the last month, with watching how this is all progressed, if you watch these videos every day, or binge watch them like Game of Thrones, like a couple of people I know binge watched my videos going back to last year. Everybody's got their thing. But one of the things I think this is a great example of when we're talking about in terms of pattern change, what a very long process it can be. And when we look at the upper air on the GFS, it's a fairly cold look that gets established, and the reason why, if you look at what's going on near the pole, so you've got this big blocking high that builds up toward Greenland. You have this other ridge that builds up on the Alaskan side, and this doesn't happen too often, but they're building toward each other, almost merging, and as a result, the polar vortex drops southward and kind of gets trapped. So it's got no place to really go. So the only thing it can really do is just keep rotating around. Now, the issue with regards to snow for the eastern part of the United States, at least, and more beneficial for what it looks like for the Midwest, is even though you've got all this blocking going on, the trough sets up in the middle of the country. So you're going to have a storm track that's going to be, at least initially, further to the west. But as long as you've got this blocking oriented in this position, it looks like it's putting the trough more in the middle of the country, at least for now, and then they just kind of swing around. And you can see here we're going through day 9, day 10. You still have this signature blocking that just holds on right through the period. So that vortex is trapped right into Canada. So as long as this is the case until these blocks show signs of breaking down to allow systems to start moving in a more natural west to east progression, we're going to be getting these cold shots. So looks like wintertime is really going to set in for the month of January, and that the cold air is not going to necessarily be transitory, other than the fact that maybe for a day or so here in the east, you get the high to move out before the next cold front comes in with the next cold air mass. So we'll keep you updated on all the goings on with regards to the weather for the rest of today. Check out the latest website posts on meteorologistjoechaffee.com, and for the latest on any developing winter weather in the New York area, New York, New Jersey, Long Island, Connecticut, Hudson Valley weather, Eastern Pennsylvania. Download my app, subscribe to my forecast. The app is free, and the subscription's just $1 a month, which is a small cup of cheap coffee. So enjoy yourself, and enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll keep you updated on all the goings on.